The Detroit Pistons cashed in, obviously, the one overall pick last offseason in Cade Cunningham, and he gave us an absolutely fun rookie season. But what are some things that he needs to improve on? What are some of the best things we saw from him during his rookie season? What was our favorite moments from his rookie season? We'll talk about all that in today's episode of the Locked On Pistons podcast.
You are Locked On Pistons, your daily Detroit Pistons podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's the deal? Welcome back to another episode of the Locked On Pistons podcast. I want to thank you guys for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We are free and available on all your podcast platforms. And if you haven't already, or if you're one of the 50% of people who are watching this on YouTube and haven't hit that subscribe button already, make sure you go ahead and do that for me. It's the best way to support the podcast. We're on our road to 3,000 subscribers, continuing to show Locked On that we are the best and fastest growing fan base at the Locked On Network. So again, hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. And per usual, just like every episode, I'm your host, Kuka Hill. You can find me over on Twitter at Kuka Hill. This month, Locked On just put out on their Twitter, but like I told you guys a few episodes ago, this month is my year anniversary of being the host of Locked On Pistons podcast. It's been a lot of fun. Gained a lot of listeners, gained a whole new fan base on the YouTube channel. It's been a lot of fun. So hopefully we continue to add more people to the fan base and continue to get better as a podcast and as a host. And we have more fun heading into another season of Pistons basketball. But first, we have to talk about the offseason and really talk about this past season and review probably the most entertaining player the Pistons have had since, I don't know, Grant Hill or so, Cade Cunningham. And I brought a friend of the podcast on to talk about this, Joe Truck. Joe, how you doing, man? You doing good, man?
Oh, I'm doing good. How are you?
There you go. I'm doing good, man.
Edwards' Twitter handle up here for me, bro.
I have everyone's backgrounds. I accidentally exited out of yours. I had to click on.
You can just delete James Edwards' Twitter handle. Actually, I don't think you guys are going to be chatting anytime soon.
Yeah, I don't think so. I don't think that's gonna happen. But let's go ahead and get right into it. So, and I'm gonna go ahead and plug this for Joe. Joe does have a big season review for Cade Cunningham coming out. Where are you submitting that at? Is it on your Substack? It's gonna
be on my Substack, which is just Joe Truck Thoughts on Substack. And yeah, so we're gonna be doing a lot of pretty big stuff this summer. Basic thought. Anybody who's followed me, I guess if you don't really know me other than from my appearances here, I've done a lot of writing about the Pistons, but I've kind of done a little less over the last couple of years just because of some other life type of stuff. Got married, moved a couple of times, busted up my knee, had to have surgery, that type of thing. I kind of figured there's enough of a buzz around the team. There's a real upward trend enough that, if there was a time to try and really dive back in, it's going to be this summer and into next year. So going to kick it off with this big Cade Cunningham piece. It's a season review. It's almost 4,000 words, went through a whole lot of video. I watched every single shot attempt that Cade Cunningham took this season twice. Watched it through once just with nothing but a couple of Moscow mules to keep me company, and then went through it again and recorded the ones that I thought were worth recording, put them into the review. So, yeah, it's a whole lot of cool stuff. I even commissioned some artwork for it. It's actually done. That's all I'm waiting for is the artwork to come out with it. Hopefully that comes out good. And, yeah, so I feel like I'm pretty prepared to talk about Cade Cunningham because I've done nothing but watching him and writing about him, thinking about him, looking at his statistics basically nonstop for the last week or so while I work on this piece. And, yeah, so we're going to talk about it. And then in a couple of days from when this comes out, let's see, this will come out tomorrow morning, right? So probably a day or so from when this comes out, look for my Substack, or you can find it on my Twitter too. And there'll be something for you to keep you occupied for a while with a really long-ass article.
There you go. So this is how we're going to do it, this review podcast. We're going to go the biggest takeaway from his rookie season. Then we'll talk about something he needs to improve on moving forward into his second season. And then the final segment, we'll talk about what was our favorite moment of Cade's rookie season. So I'm going to start this off. I'm going to go first, and I'll let Joe go second. But my biggest takeaway from Cade Cunningham's rookie season, I could get, into the details, talk about specifically, finishing around the rim, maybe his pull-up jumper, his ability to adapt to the NBA quicker, because at the beginning of the season, I talked about how he was taking a little too many jump shots from beyond the arc, then changed it up and literally basically lived inside the restricted area. I can talk about all those things. But my biggest takeaway from Cade's rookie season, you ready for this, Joe?
I'm ready.
The Detroit Pistons have a future MVP on their roster. I think Cade Cunningham will be an MVP in the NBA at some point during his career. I think he's a future superstar in the making. There's no real holes in this dude's game. There's areas that he needs to improve on, but there's no real mind-blowing holes in this guy's game. He's just so well-rounded. He knows how to play. He knows how to be a leader. He already knows how to be a face of the franchise type of player. He already is making his teammates better. He has everything that you could possibly want in a superstar and a face of the franchise type of guy. Not to mention he's around 6'6", 6'7", 7-foot wingspan. He's able to get to the rim, finish around the rim. He showed that he's able to take that pull-up midi. And I've talked about multiple times. And actually, if you go even years back, if you were some of the listeners, when I used to be on Joe's podcast, some of the things we used to get into arguments about or talk about was superstars versus role players or stars versus role players. And I used to bring up all the time, being able to shoot from all three levels, being able to score from all three levels. That's something that he can do. Or eventually will be able to do. He does need to improve on his three-point shooting a little bit, but we'll talk about that probably in the next segment. But either way, I think my biggest takeaway from Cade's rookie season is the fact he's phenomenal, he's great, and that the Detroit Pistons, for the first time in probably I think Chauncey finished top 5 MVP voting one year, didn't he? 2005, 2006, I think.
Yeah, I think he finished 4th or so.
Yeah, so for the first time since Chauncey, I guess, the Pistons are going to have an MVP candidate on their roster. And he will win an MVP. He will be an MVP player at some point during his career. That was my biggest takeaway from his rookie year. Joe, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm not sure that I'd be quite daring enough to say he'll win an MVP because it's really hard to win an MVP. But at a base level, I agree with you that the sort of biggest macro level takeaway from this season is that Cade is that dude. He is a genuine franchise cornerstone type of player. One thing within that is that it's not just how good he was on the court, but it seems really clear to me that he's got exactly the type of mindset and approach to the game that you would want. It's something that I've mentioned a lot when I've written about it, but he's got the perfect mix of where he's not overbearing. He's not a prick about things because he's so cocky about himself, but he's also never been afraid of any moments, right? He wants the ball in big moments. He wants to be that guy making the big plays. He knows he's the man, but at the same time, he's totally comfortable with letting other guys get theirs. He's totally comfortable being more of a facilitator at times. And, and even going back to when he was in college for a season and before that, by all accounts, he's a really great teammate. So he kind of just has that perfect mixture of he's got all the confidence in the world, but he still is a really good teammate and that type of thing. I would say on a more specific level, because you talked about that kind of macro level where he's just great, doesn't have holes in his game. The thing that really stood out to me, especially after writing this review and watching all of his shot attempts, is the fact that when he had space to operate, he was basically unstoppable in isolation. A huge amount of his efficiency issues, and part of it was his fault. He occasionally would dribble into crowds that he didn't need to, but when he had space to operate, nobody could stay in front of him. And some really good defenders at times, he just absolutely cooked. And it really gives hope that in the future with better players around him, more shooting. And you think about this season, so often the starting lineup featured at least 2 other total non-shooters. Isaiah Stewart shot a little bit at the end of the season, but he wasn't really a shooter all year. And then you often had at least one other guy in that starting lineup that was really not a threat to shoot. And even more often than that, it was pretty common that Saddiq Bey was really the only shooting threat on the floor with him. And then, of course, plenty of teams went under screens against him himself, which is obviously partially his fault. But just at a base level, there's a lot of hope that if he was with better players, and if, even thinking about as soon as next season, you put him out there with more shooting and just general competence on offense, he's going to be wickedly, wickedly efficient. And also the other big thing that will help that, which is something you've complained about constantly on this show, is the fact that the refs just gave him absolutely no respect all year. He should have gotten way more calls than he did. It was kind of baffling, especially watching through all of his shot attempts, just watching his being how are some of these not fouls? Because he's so physical. So yeah, those would be my main takeaways. The sort of macro thing, just like you talked about, and then on a more specific level, just the fact that when he had space to operate, he was almost totally unstoppable. And a lot of the struggles that he had and that you find in the statistics are really closely connected to the fact that he just often did not have space to do the things that he wanted to do.
So just to hit on something you mentioned, something about him being a great teammate, then we'll move on to things that he needs to improve on next season. But I was going through. You guys already know. Everyone listens knows I'm a Killian Hayes. I've turned myself into a Killian Hayes supporter. I was going through Killian Hayes' Oklahoma City game. I tweeted out one of his clips on Twitter, and that one of his finishes. Joe, are you eating a candy bar in the mic, man? What is that? A candy bar?
I don't know what it is. Sorry, I didn't mean to.
It sounds like you what kind of candy bar you like?
I don't have a candy bar. Oh, I like Built Bars for sure. That's where we're putting up some Built Bars over here. No, I don't know what it is, man. Sorry. I don't know. Must have been just some static in the mic or something. My bad.
No, I'm just messing with you. But
yeah, Built Bars for sure. We're company men here.
One of the things I just wanted to mention was that him being a great teammate was in one of the clips with Killian Hayes against OKC, with one of his finishes, Cade stood up immediately to support him. Everyone else was standing on the bench. And if you watch Cade turns to the bench, tells them all to stand up and like celebrate Killian's bucket. And it wasn't just happening for Killian, obviously, but that just speaks to like Cade is a leader. He's a great teammate. He wants to see his guys succeed. Dude is like the complete package. He's going to be a superstar in the league. So,
yep. And it seemed like it was so clear that he was never jealous of anyone else's success, right? Like he just is not going to, I don't want to say immediately that he's like a Tim Duncan, Steph Curry type, but like it's pretty rare that a guy as talented as him seems to have as little of an ego as he does, while also, once again, at the same time, still clearly having immense confidence in himself. He checks each of those boxes as perfectly as you could possibly hope for.
Definitely. So when we come back, though, we'll talk about some things that we feel like that he has to improve on going into his second season. Stay tuned for that. But first, I have to tell you guys about some of our sponsors. First up, let me tell you a little bit about Shady Rays. Shady Rays is an independent sunglasses company that gives you the features of a $200 sunglasses for a fraction of the price. That means polarized lenses, well-constructed durable frames, and premium high-end finishes. Also, something you won't find anywhere else is Shady Rays' insane protection program. Shady Rays includes lost and broken protection on every pair. They will send you a brand new pair if you lose them, no matter what happened. Give them a try, and if you don't love them, you'll pay absolutely nothing. It's as simple as that. Plus, 10 meals are donated to fight hunger in America when you shop with Shady Rays, so that's always a great thing, too. Exclusively for our listeners, head to ShadyRays.com and use code LOCKEDON to get 50% off 2 or more pairs of polarized glasses or sunglasses. Again, exclusively for our listeners, head to ShadyRays.com and use LOCKEDON to get 50% off 2 or more pairs of polarized sunglasses. 50% off 2 or more Shady Rays sunglasses, backed by over 150,000 verified 5-star reviews. That's ShadyRays.com. Get it for 50% off 2 or more of your polarized sunglasses. So I want to thank you guys again for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We're free and available on all your podcast platforms. And if you haven't already, head to our YouTube channel at Locked On Pistons. Hit that subscribe button. Best way to support the podcast. On a road to 3,000 subscribers, continuing to show Locked On that we're the fastest and best growing fan base at the Locked On Network. So again, best way to support the podcast, head to the YouTube channel at Locked On Pistons. I'd really appreciate it. But Cade Cunningham, man, we're going to be talking about him throughout the entire episode. He's fantastic. He's great. We all love Cade. He's going to bring Detroit sports back, hopefully, lead the revolt, bring us back to, the shining light at the end of the tunnel that was very, very dark for over a decade. So can't wait for all of that. But he's not absolutely perfect yet. And he has things that he has to work on. He has things that he must improve on. Since I went first last segment, I'll let you go first, Joe. If you had to pick one thing that he has to improve on in this offseason? Obviously, he needs to sharpen up all kinds of skills. He's not just perfect at any one thing. You have to always get better. But if you had to pick one thing that you would want to see better next season, what would be that one thing?
I'll probably pick. I would like to see him get a little bit less tunnel vision on some of his drives, because the obvious thing will be his shooting, but that just seems too obvious to say. He needs to shoot better, obviously. So yeah, he did have a tendency to he'd drive into the paint and there'd be 3 or 4 guys or whatever there, and either he'd just kind of throw up something real bad, or he'd do a whole lot of just turning on his pivot foot, pump faking, trying to find some space. And once again, I think part of that is the fact that he knew that the guys who were open weren't going to be able to shoot it anyways. But just at a basic level, you just think about the process of it, that you would like him to pass out of some of those situations a little bit more, because once again, a big part of the reason why he had some issues with his scoring efficiency and such, which people have brought up all the time as an argument against him, a big part of it is that those types of plays where he'd drive into the paint, there'd be plenty of guys waiting for him. And once again, a big part of that is his teammates, but you'd like him to trust his teammates a little bit more. At the very least, show that he's capable of making those passes consistently. He made good passes pretty consistently, but he didn't always make the right pass. And that would probably be the main thing that I'd like to see him do, is even if he doesn't necessarily have great shooters on the perimeter around him, just try not to dribble into so many really difficult shots, because there were a lot of times he kind of dribbled into a dead end, basically. And once again, that's not a huge concern. First off, oftentimes the guys that were open weren't really worth passing to. And second off, that's a very stereotypical young ball handler type of a thing to do, right? Most of his life, in fact, probably all of his life before he got to the NBA, when he can dribble into those situations, and he's just so much bigger, stronger, and better than the defenders that he can just score anyways. And obviously that's a much harder proposition against NBA defenders. So part of it is just basic learning curve. But I think that's probably the biggest thing I would like to see him do, is just in general, try to avoid those kind of dead end possessions where he dribbles, doesn't get all the way to the paint or all the way to the hoop, but he spins and pump fakes and just kind of tosses up a real ugly hook or floater or whatever.
Do you have his stats in front of you right now?
Some of them I have. Yeah.
No, don't look, don't cheat.
Oh, okay. No, I haven't had anything open. No.
All right, so this is as you were talking, I just thought about this. I just wanted to ask you. It has nothing to do, by the way, with this. It's just get in my head real quick.
Yeah.
How many free throws, if you had to guess, he attempted a game?
1.7.
Oh, God. Okay, so you went even worse than it actually was, which I guess I can respect that. But he averaged 2.6 free throws a game. So I think that's an area that hopefully improves, but I don't think that's really on him. I feel like that he just needs to get some respect from the refs. Some players, obviously, you don't want them shying away from contact, flying away from contact, falling from the rim, etc. But I really don't feel like Cade was doing that. He just wasn't. Like, there was one finish he had against the Mavericks in like one of their last games along the baseline when he literally is like parallel to the ground somehow, and he somehow finishes finish it off the glass when he was like right next to the back. I don't know how he even got the angle to finish off the glass, but either way, he did, and it was a clear foul. I don't know how he got that, but that's something I'd like to see the refs give him some more calls next season. But back to him. Well, I want to see him improve on if I had to pick one thing for him to get better at or improve on, I've said it multiple times in the podcast. I'm not moving off of it. And like Joe said, shooting obviously would be like an obvious answer. Like, oh, yeah, we'd like you to shoot 40% from deep. Well, no shit. Like, of course. But if I had to pick one thing, I'm going to stick with strength and conditioning. I feel like if he was a little bit stronger, and I won't really say maybe not so conditioning. I don't feel actually. Yeah, we saw him get tired a little bit, but
yeah, there were plenty of games where he clearly was just totally gassed by the end of this game for sure.
So I'm going to stick with strength and conditioning for that. Obviously, the conditioning part, you don't want him to be really gassed at the end of games. You want to be able to handle a full basketball game. And obviously, I've talked about on the podcast. Hopefully, they don't go completely heliocentric and ask him to do everything, because then it's basically going to be really tough for him not to wear down. But more so strength, because I feel like a lot of his turnovers, and obviously not all of his turnovers, some of them were bad passes and bad reads. But I feel like if he got stronger, a lot of those turnovers that we saw when he was just dribbling to the lane and lost it when people bumped into him, or there is the famous gif that he has when he's slapping his arms up and down the floor and then he gets called for a technical foul. Like, yeah, he got fouled, but in situations like that, if he's stronger, which I'm not sitting here trying to say that, oh, well, who cares about getting fouled? You shouldn't care about getting fouled. No, refs should call the damn foul. But if you have to try to fight through the fouls as well, and him getting stronger would help that. He'd be able to fight through a lot of the contact that people give him, and even when he doesn't get the foul call, he'll probably have a better efficiency because of that, because he gets stronger, is able to fight through some of that contact. But also, again, like his turnovers, a lot of them were coming off of him dribbling into the paint. Guys would slap his arms, guys would bump him off his balance, and he would lose the ball or really, fumble it or something. Guys would strip it, that kind of thing. So I feel like that would really help him a lot too. It probably would help him draw fouls more too. They would probably have more respect for his foul calls if he went up stronger. I guess. I mean, I'm trying to give refs the best benefit of the doubt here, and be objective here. But I think, yeah, I definitely am going to go with strength and conditioning as his number one thing in the offseason. I think that would really help his driving game and his ball handling and cutting down on his turnovers. You don't have anything to add to that, Joe?
I mean, the foul situation was ridiculous all season. I think the easiest thing is actually he just needs – nobody wants to tell someone to flop, but he's got to do something to sell fouls a little more. I think that genuinely, like, you know, I'm not saying that he needs to become James Harden or Marcus Smart just flopping around constantly, but I do think genuinely if you don't sell it at all, refs aren't going to call it. And, you know, I know something. Do we have a little time for your next break? Otherwise,
yeah, we got about a minute or two. Go ahead.
Okay. So I made a little bit of waves by tweeting that there was a little bit of his game that reminded me of Carmelo Anthony. And first off, I want to emphasize that I mean a little bit. I'm not saying that he's at all like Carmelo Anthony, but when he drives to the hoop, kind of reminds me of when Carmelo would drive to the hoop. And part of the reason is Carmelo never really sold contact and fouls. And he shot so much he did shoot plenty of free throws, but not as many as you would think for how much he was in the lane. And that's one of the things that reminded me of it is he just would have these super physical drives where he'd get tons of contact, get the shit fouled out of him, and then he just wouldn't get foul calls because he just didn't sell it ever. And I genuinely think that Cade would do well to sell foul calls occasionally.
So I just want to say this, and then we'll move on to one of our favorite moments of the season by Cade. But I just want to say this. I know for a fact, Aston, his trainer, has said that he's listened to this podcast every now and then. Aston, listen, I saw your tweet a few weeks ago saying, I guess we got to go to acting class now. I guess that's what we have to do now as players. Yeah. Listen, it's tough. We're not saying that you should have to do that. We're not saying that that's like, you know, it's fair and, you know, all that kind of stuff. But, you know, it's part of it, man. It might just have to happen.
Do what you got to do, man.
It might just have to happen, man, because I think I might agree with you, Joe. I think that might be his only chance of getting foul calls, dude, because it was getting ridiculous. And I even compared it to like Sadiq Bey when he got to the rim. A lot of times you'd hear him scream and do the little, you know, the yell that everyone does when they get to the rim.
We need him to be going full Greg Monroe every time he's at the hoop. No matter what, just one. Doesn't get touched at all. I still want to hear that every single time. And also like everyone else in the organization, like Dwayne Casey, Troy Weaver, anytime all offseason they talk to someone, they should bring up how ridiculous it is he didn't get foul calls.
Oh, yeah, I said that. Make sure
the league knows full. They should be sending in tape to the league. Genuinely, it needs to be a concerted effort because it's a big deal. It matters.
No, yeah, I completely agree. I was saying that on the podcast throughout the entire season. So, and eventually Cade got sick of it and started picking up technical fouls. So,
yeah,
definitely was a problem all season. Hopefully, it's not one next year. But when we come back, we'll talk about our favorite moment from Cade Cunningham's rookie season. Stay tuned for that one. But first, Joe brought them up earlier. I had to tell you guys about one of your guys' favorite sponsors, Built Bar. This is the time of year that I've given up on all my New Year's resolutions, but not this year. I'm sticking to my resolution to eat right, and it's thanks to Built Bar. It almost feels like it's not even really a resolution because I actually enjoy eating them. Have you guys tried the Puffs bar? If you haven't, you're missing out on one of Built Bar's best tasting protein bars. Puffs are the first ever protein-infused marshmallow. They're fluffy, they're marshmallowy. They're not just a protein bar, they're an absolute treat. And get this, they're covered in 100% real chocolate, but it's not just the Puffs bar. It's all Built Bars are covered in 100% real chocolate. It's low calories and high protein. Replace your candy bars with these. They taste better, and they're simply better for you. A typical candy bar can be anywhere between 200 to 300 calories, 30 grams of sugar, and dozens of net carbs. Go to Built.com and scroll down to the macros chart. You'll be absolutely blown away. High protein, low calories. High fiber, low carbs. Most Built Bars contain 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, 4 net carbs, and 17 grams of protein. And while being healthy for you, they have all kinds of flavors that make it taste delicious. Mint brownie, coconut almond, new flavor this month, white chocolate, cookies and cream. You guys know my favorite is the peanut butter flavor. You got cherry barcia, strawberry, raspberry, blueberry, all kinds of flavors that I'm not even mentioning right now. If you're constantly checking out Built.com, you'll see more limited time flavors that feels like they're coming out with every other week. At Built Bar, they're all about the taste. They make it delicious first, then figure out how to make it healthy. Now, I don't know how, but they pull it off every single time. So go to built.com, use promo code LOCK15 and get 15% off your order. Again, go to built.com, use promo code LOCK15 and get 15% off your order. Built Bar, the best tasting protein bar ever. So I want to thank you guys again for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We are free and available on all your podcast platforms. And if you haven't already, head to the YouTube channel. You guys get all that jazz. Hit that subscribe button. On the road to 3,000 subscribers. Continuing to show Locked On. We're the best and fastest growing fan base at the Locked On Network. Again, best way to support the podcast, Locked On Pistons YouTube channel. Hit that subscribe button. So we're going to finish this podcast out talking about our favorite moments or our favorite moment from Cade Cunningham's rookie season. Joe, I'll let you go first. There's a lot of moments. There's a lot of fun things that happened this season for Cade. I'm sure there's a lot of different places you're going with. You wanted to go with this, but if you had to select one, which one are you going with here?
I think I would probably take the Utah game. Cade scored 29, 8 assists, and they won. And it was Cade versus the Jazz for quite a while that game. And so I would take that. And the other thing that was fun about that is that was in, I can double check a second. Pretty sure that was in early-ish January. Yeah, early-ish January. So that was, he had started to find a groove by that point, but he was not tearing it up like at the end of the season. He had several other really good games after this. But I feel like that was one of the first real, holy smokes, this guy is on something right now. And yeah, so I think I would take that moment. It was kind of like a superhero origin story moment, where it's like he's really feeling out his powers, where not only is he carrying the team to a win, but against a pretty good team in the Jazz, and he just killed them all game. So yeah, I think I would take that. That's a whole game. That's not one specific moment, but I think I'd probably take that. Another good one was the game against the Nets where he hit 8 threes or whatever in the fourth quarter. That was pretty fun. But that's a little bit of a different situation, obviously. So that one was fun, but the fact that it was against a decent team in the Jazz and they won, and that was before he really went on a tear. So yeah, I'm taking that Jazz game.
A fun thing about that Jazz game is I remember exactly which game that is, simply because I remember coming on the podcast after and talking about that was probably I gave Dwayne Casey credit here. It was my favorite. Come on, Joe. Come on. You gotta let me get this. I gave Dwayne Casey credit because
you know what they say, bro.
What?
Broken clocks, they're still right twice a day, man.
Let me get this out. So I gave Dwayne Casey credit after this game because late in this game, in the second half, it really was probably the best offense or the best strategy I guess I saw from him all year. And I came on the podcast, I said it wasn't even that complex of strategy. Cade just went out there and he picked out the mismatch on the floor. They ISO Cade on, I think it was Bogdanovich that he kept attacking over and over and over. And I remember I remember watching this game and listening or watching and thinking to myself, Isaiah Stewart has to be taken out this game. Every time he's in the game, Rudy Gobert is in, he's swatting everything at the rim. Blah, blah. If you take him out the game, they're forced to spread the floor out, let Cade attack. And eventually, he did do that late in the game. Cade was able to switch out. He literally asked for the Bogdanovich screen, got the switch every time, spaced the floor. I believe they had Trey Lyles in the corner, and they literally just ISO'd Cade the entire time, and Cade just ripped them to shreds. And really, I think that's the only time they did that all year, where they let Cade just seek out the mismatch, space the floor, and let him do it over and over and over again. I don't get why that. I don't know why that was the only time, but it was, and it worked to perfection. So no, Joe, you're not going to. No, I can't. I know. I can't. No, I can't let you. I can't let you do it. I can't.
I have some thoughts on the subject.
I can't. We can't do it. We can't do it today. Not. I told everybody in the last podcast I would give it a little time with Dwayne Casey. I'm not going to go too crazy on him, but
okay.
All right. So my favorite moment. And I'm not going to lie, Joe kind of stole one of mine because he mentioned the Brooklyn game, and that was going to be one of the games I mentioned. But that's fine because I had one that I really – not a game. I went for a specific moment. Since Joe went with the game, I'm going to go for a very specific moment. The dunk on Jalen Smith. And then the point afterwards. That was absolutely probably some of the most fun I've seen. That was seeing him like because that game was frustrating and it kind of felt like it's not like he got fouled on it, but it kind of felt like watching it was like a FU to like the players and the refs to everybody. Like it was just a big FU to everybody, and him getting teed up afterwards and getting him thrown out the game. While it sucked at the moment, I'm not gonna lie, it's kind of fun to look back on now to see him reverse dunk on Jalen Smith, pointing at his face, and then get thrown out the game for it. It's kind of fun to look back on. So that's my favorite. Probably my favorite fun moment from his rookie season. Even though there's so many that you could pick from. Yeah. Joe mentioned it, the Brooklyn game, another game that I thought was really fun, Boston game that they won. I thought that was a really nice game, fun moments in that one. There's another game, I'm forgetting which one it was, that he had a triple-double in. One of those, he had a few triple-doubles. One of them it was really fun. I'm forgetting which game it was against. But he had a lot of fun moments. And there was another game against Brooklyn earlier in the season that I actually went to go watch in person, and it was a lot of fun to see him do that. It was the one when he hit KD with that in and out and took him to the rim and bodied him at the rim. So, again, he had a lot of good moments, but my favorite one was probably going to be the Phoenix one, the reverse dunk.
Yeah, no arguments there.
Did you also enjoy the reverse dunk one? Or
yeah, I enjoyed it. Yeah,
all right.
I really enjoyed the strategy involved there. The best strategy of the season was, hey, what if I just give the ball to Cade and tell him to score every time? That's when you know that there's a high level of strategy going on. When that's the best strategy of the season was, hey, this guy that no one can guard one-on-one, what if we just give him the ball and get everyone else out of the way? That's really a high-level offensive design is, hey, Cade, go score, bro. You know the meme from when Scotty Brooks was the coach of the Thunder? And it was his play sheet, and it just said, Kevin, Russ, ? I think that play sheet may have been an improvement on the offense for most of the season if it just said Cade, Deke, ?
Okay.
Although Jeremy Grant will probably be one, so one will probably be Jeremy.
Come on. Okay, so we'll wrap it up there. Joe, thank you for going on, man. Actually, I want to get one more thing out of you, just a real quick thing. Obviously, the NBA playoffs are going on. The Pistons are not in it, but this is an NBA podcast as well, man. It's not just a Piston podcast. We can't just ignore the playoffs going on. It's been fun. I've had a lot of fun watching these first round games. It's a really entertaining first round. So, Joe, just real quick, we're wrapping up the podcast. Don't want to take too long on this. I'm going to ask you who you think wins the series, and we're going to go through each one. You just tell me where you're at with them. So, Minnesota, Memphis.
Are they done yet? I think they're playing right now.
Memphis up by 40.
Yeah. I think I'm still going to go Memphis because they've been a better team all year, but I wouldn't be shocked if the Timberwolves stuck in it.
All right, I'm also taking Memphis, even though I think Minnesota may win one more game. All right, Phoenix, New Orleans. Obviously. Yeah, Phoenix. All right, Miami, Atlanta. I think that's another obvious one. Miami,
yeah.
All right, Brooklyn, Boston.
Boston.
Okay, yeah, I'm also taking Boston. Do you think it goes 7 games with Brooklyn?
I think it goes 5.
Oh, God. Okay, I think it goes 6, but I think Boston wins either way. 76ers, Toronto.
76ers.
I'm with you as well.
That's already 2-0, isn't it?
Yep.
Yeah.
Chicago, Milwaukee.
Yep,
obviously Milwaukee. Where's the one? Oh, there's 2 more. Okay, so Dallas, Utah. I think this one's
I want to say Dallas because it's 1-1 and supposedly Luka's coming back. But, I don't know. Luka coming back, the super, ISO heavy offense with him not at 100%. I wouldn't be. And the other thing to keep in mind here is it seems like there's a lot of volatility with it because this version of the Jazz, this is the end of the line for them, right?
Mm-hmm.
And everyone on that team has to know. The coach has to know. The players have to know. So on one hand, maybe they dig deep and they're like, no, this isn't how this ends. And they come out really strong. But on the other hand, they may just be like, well, that's that. We're moving on now. And they may just fold. So I think I'd lean Dallas just because you'd have to think. I mean, they won one of the first 2 games and they were pretty competitive in the other one. And they didn't even have Luka. So you'd have to imagine Dallas. But I would not be shocked at all if the Jazz kind of rally around themselves, circle the wagons, and end up finishing really strong and winning the series convincingly.
I'm going to shock everybody with it. I think Utah wins in 7. That's my hot take of the first round. I think Utah pulls it off.
Spicy.
All right, and then obviously Golden State. Come on. Golden State, Denver. I think that one's obvious as well. Golden
State. Jordan Poole can't be stopped.
Fair enough. We'll have Joe again on the podcast before the finals. I'm not going to ask him who he thinks comes out the West and East. I'm sure he'll be on again. We'll talk about that when he comes back on. But Joe, thank you for coming on, man. I really appreciate it.
I think the Lakers can still come out of the West, don't you?
Nah, take it easy. We don't mention.
No, I've been watching ESPN. They really keep saying that the Lakers might still have a chance.
Well, we don't mention that team because of the contamination it might have towards the Pistons because of a player that's on that team. But either way, Joe, thank you for coming on. You guys can follow him at Joe_Truck. Make sure you guys are staying tuned to his Substack or on Twitter for this upcoming Cade Cunningham review. You said it has close to 4,000 words already on it?
It's over 4,000 words, yeah.
Over 4,000 words. I'm sure it's going to be a fun read. Make sure you guys are checking out that. Staying tuned for it. I want to thank you guys for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We are free and available on all your podcast platforms. Make sure you guys are making Locked On NBA your second listen of every single day, from the first jump ball of the play-in tournament to the last possession of the finals. Locked On experts take you inside the playoffs with insight and analysis affecting all of the playoff teams. Again, thank you guys for listening to today's episode. Subscribe to the YouTube channel at Locked On Pistons. And until next time, we're going to have Bryce on the podcast for the next episode. I know I told you guys yesterday that the next episode would be Bryce, but I confused my days. I thought, he's coming on Wednesday, but I recorded the night before. It's too much to explain. I got my days mixed up, basically. He'll be on the next episode. Yeah.
Koo isn't that smart.
I don't know about that one, man. I think I'm pretty smart.
When I told him that I was from Grand Rapids, he didn't know where that was.
Hey, man, I don't
lived outside of Detroit his entire life, pretty much. And he didn't know where the second largest city in the state that's like 2 hours away from him was. He's like, what? Where's Grand Rapids?
Never been there. Is what it is, man. I stay where I'm at.
I still know where some places are. I've never been, man. Like, I've never been to New York. I know where it is.
Fair enough. I'll see you guys later, man. Thank you for coming on, Joe. Peace out, everybody. Stay safe. Enjoy the playoffs. I'll see you guys next one.